This video is going to describe chapter 4.4, parallel and perpendicular lines. So the first thing I want to do is make sure we understand the definition of parallel and perpendicular. So let's start with the blue and we can eventually get to some of the drawings and what the red stuff is talking about. But a parallel line, or parallel lines, are two lines that never intersect. So these two lines will never cross. Right? And perpendicular lines are two lines that intersect at a 90-degree angle, so a right angle. So not only do they have to intersect, but they have to intersect at an angle that is exactly 90 degrees. There are lots of lines that intersect, but not all lines are perpendicular. So parallel lines have the same slope. So the way you can tell just from the formula is if the m of the formula is the same, then these two lines are parallel. Keep in mind it doesn't matter about the b's. The b's will be different. Right? If the b's are the same and the slopes are the same, so the m's and the b's are the same, then they're the same line. But if the m, the slope is the same, and the b, the y-intercept is different, then these two lines are parallel. And if you look at perpendicular lines that intersect at a 90-degree angle, they have what we call slopes that what we call opposite reciprocal. And so the idea is that if this slope is 3 over 2, right? So it's 3 over 2x plus 3. So this is my m, my slope, and that's my y-intercept. Keep in mind the y-intercept for these two is meaningless for you. So the slope is 3 halves, or 3 over 2. The opposite reciprocal means I need to flip the fraction, and if it's positive, I turn it negative. If it's negative, I turn it positive. So because this one was 3 over 2, this would be negative 2 over 3. If you think of it the other way, if I knew this line, and this slope is negative 2 over 3, I need to flip this fraction, and then because it's negative, it would have to become positive, and then it's positive 3 over 2. We're going to practice this. But keep in mind that these slopes would have to be identical. So if this were a 2 and this were a negative 2, they are not identical. So they are not parallel. But because these are both 2, they are parallel. These, same thing, have to be opposite reciprocal. So this is 3 over 2. If this was 2/3, not negative 2/3, these lines would not be perpendicular. They would intersect, but not at a 90-degree angle. But because this is negative 2/3 and this is positive 3 halves, these two lines would be perpendicular. So let's take a look at a problem. We'll start with parallel. So you're going to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So remember that's y equals mx plus b. Slope-intercept form for the line that passes through negative 3, 5 and is parallel to the graph of y equals 2x minus 4. So now a lot of students get confused with what to do with this equation. Essentially, I need this equation for that piece of information and that piece of information only. So the only thing I want from this equation is what is the slope of the line that my new line is going to be parallel to. And since it's parallel, I know they must have the same slope. So I know that the slope of my new line is going to be 2. I just don't necessarily know yet what the b is. I'm assuming it's not going to be negative 4, since that's what this one is. So there are two ways that we can solve this. Okay, keep in mind this is the point that we said it's going to pass through, and it's parallel to this line. So if it's parallel to that line, I know that it has a slope of 2. So one way I can do this is to use the point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so the first way that I would do this, I'm going to take, remember this is x1, y1, and then this is my slope. So it's going to be y minus 5 equals 2 times x minus, I'm going to write this like this, minus negative 3. Right? Hopefully you know that that's something that we're going to need to fix before we can move on. So this becomes y minus 5 equals 2 times x plus 3. Now remember, I need to be in slope-intercept form, which means it needs to be y equals mx plus b. So that means I'm now going to distribute. This becomes y minus 5 equals 2x plus 6. And then I basically have one last step, and that is I need to add 5 to both sides. Remember, I have to add the 5 to the constant. That goes away. I'm left with y equals 2x plus 11. Okay, so that would be one way that I could solve this problem. I'm going to put this one off to the side because we're going to come take a look at it in just a sec, because we're going to solve it again using a different method. So keeping in mind that this is my x and this is my y, and again I know that this is my slope, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to determine what the b is, what's the y-intercept. So I'm going to take this y, I'm going to substitute it in. I'm going to take this m, I'm going to substitute that in, take my x, put that in, and then I don't know b. So I take 2 times negative 3, this becomes 5 equals negative 6 plus b. I am then going to add 6 to both sides because I want to isolate the b. This cancels out, and I've got b equals 11. Keep in mind I'm not done yet because my formula has to be in y equals mx plus b. However, now I know m and I know b. So my formula, or my equation for the line, is y equals mx plus b. Okay, so this would be the other way that you could solve it. So I'm going to come back to this one in just a sec. Taking a look again here. This one used point slope form. Right, so I used this formula using this point that I knew and this slope. I substituted into this formula. I ended up having to distribute and then simplify. Okay, the advantage to this one, if you're looking for the kind of the pros and cons of each of these, the advantage to this one is that once I get down to this final answer, I'm done. This is my final answer. I don't then have to figure out where I'm supposed to plug things back in again. The disadvantage is you got to make sure you distribute, and there's probably one extra step in this problem. Okay, but again, as long as you remember to distribute, right? Well, obviously, I guess we had to simplify there, but as long as you remember to distribute here, you're going to end up getting yourself to y equals, and you're going to be set with an answer. If you look at this one, okay, the advantage to this one is it may be a little bit shorter if you understand what you're doing, but your problem is that you have to remember that this is your slope and it's going to end up going over here, and that what you're doing all this work is to solve for b, not for your final answer, but for b, and then b needs to be put into the equation as well. So I need to take this slope and this b and put them into the equation. Okay, either one of them will work, and it is actually just a matter of preference. Whichever one is easier for you, they are equally correct. So let's try it now, what happens when it's perpendicular. So let's come back to our what happens when lines are perpendicular. We know that they are going to have opposite reciprocal slopes. So if you get this problem, write an equation in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. For a line that passes through negative 4, 6, and is perpendicular to the graph of 2x plus 3y equals 12. Now my problem is that in this equation they didn't give it to me in slope-intercept form. Instead they gave it to me in standard form, which means I now need to make it into slope-intercept. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. This goes away and I'm left with 3y equals, I'm going to put the negative 2x in front of the 12. Keep in mind that that does not become 10x. Right? 12 minus 2x is the same as negative 2x plus 12. Now, I need to get the y by itself, which means I need to divide out 3 to everything. And so this becomes y equals negative 2 over 3 times x plus 4. So this is the equation of that line. So this is in standard form, and this is in slope-intercept form. Now again, remember, all I care about with this equation is the slope. Once I have this piece of information, this equation is no longer of value to me. Okay, and so now I've done all this to find the slope, and I know that it's going to have to be perpendicular to this, which means that it's going to be the opposite reciprocal of negative 2/3. So it's going to be very similar to the example we did over here. Okay, so keeping this, I'll put this off to the side for now. We're going to look at the 2 different ways that you could solve this problem. So remember now, this is the equation of the line, but our line is going to be perpendicular to that, and this is the point. So one way is to use point slope. And so this is my x1, this is my y1, but now keep in mind my slope is not going to be negative 2/3. That's the line. It's perpendicular to that, which means the slope of my new line is the opposite reciprocal, which is 3/2. So I'm going to just substitute in. Let's take a different color here. We're going to go y minus y1, which is 6, equals m, which is 3/2, times x minus negative 4. All right, now I need to simplify this. So this becomes y minus 6 equals 3/2 times x plus 4. All right, the next step, if you remember from before when we were doing this, I need to distribute. So this 3/2 goes over there. So I'm going y minus 6 equals 3/2 x. Now 3/2 times 4, or 4/1, this is the same as 12/2, which is the same as positive 6. Okay, and then my final step is going to be to add 6 to both sides. Keep in mind I have to add 6 to the constant over there, so this means y equals 3/2 x plus 12. So that's the equation of the line that is perpendicular, let's get the problem back up here, that is perpendicular to this. All right, so this is negative 2/3 as the slope, and this one has 3/2 as the slope. All right, well now let's take a look at the other way that we can solve that. So again, this is the line that it is perpendicular to, so that's not the slope I want to use. The slope I want to use is the opposite reciprocal of that. All right, so that's going to be 3/2. So then I'm going to use y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to substitute in from y equals mx plus b, I'm going to need to find b. So y, remember this is x and this is y. So I'm going to take this 6, put it in for y. Take this 3/2, I'm going to put it in for m. I'm going to take this negative 4, I'm going to put it in for x, and then I need to solve for b. So this becomes 6 equals, this is going to be negative 12/2, so that's the same as negative 6 plus b. Sorry, I should have switched colors here. Now I'm going to have to add 6 to both sides. That will go away. 6 plus 6 is 12, so I've got b equals 12. Okay, at this point now I know my m and I know my b. So I'm going to write my equation as y equals m x plus b. Right, and so again, what I want you to notice is that this method and this method get us to the same place. Y equals 3/2 x plus 12. Y equals 3/2 x plus 12. Whichever one makes more sense to you, whichever one you feel is easier, is the correct way. Right? And again, I don't know if they really save you a whole lot of steps either way, so whichever one seems to kind of strike you is the one that you should go with. So that's all we got for this. Keep in mind now you got a lot of steps. You want to be really careful with what you're doing, particularly as you start to distribute. You got positives and negatives. Just, you make one small mistake early in the problem and you really set yourself up for disaster. So don't forget to do the problems on the bottom of the page. Thanks for watching the video and I'll see you in class.